My Weird School Fast Facts. Explorers, Presidents, and Toilets. Written by Dan Gutman. Pictures by Jim Pelot. The Beginning. My name is Andrea and I love history. Oh no, it's Andrea Young, that annoying girl in my class with curly brown hair. Who said you could take over my book? It's our book, Arlo, not your book. We're supposed to talk about history together. History? Are you kidding me? History is the most boring subject in the history of the world. Nobody wants to read about a bunch of dead guys. History is fascinating, Arlo, and it's not just about dead guys. When we learn about U.S. history, we're learning about how our country came to be. That's important. I'll tell you what's important. Tissues. If we didn't have tissues, how would I blow my nose? Ignore him. Arlo just wants attention. If he doesn't want to talk about the history of the United States, then I will. He can just sit there and blow his nose if he wants to. Nothing doing. I am Professor AJ, and I already forgot more history than Andrea will ever learn. So na-na-na-boo-boo on her. I know everything that's worth knowing. For instance, did you know how America came to be discovered? Well, I'll tell you. It all started in 1492. Columbus told the Pilgrims to go sail to America because he was busy playing video games. The Pilgrims hired George Washington to write the Gettysburg Address in his underwear, and the next thing anybody knew, Neil Armstrong was standing on the moon taking selfies. And that's everything you need to know about American history. That's just ridiculous, Arlo, and you know it. None of that is true. Yeah, but some people will fall for anything. That just goes to show that you shouldn't believe everything you read in a book, especially a My Weird School book. But I know lots of real history too. I bet you didn't know that President Calvin Coolidge had a pet raccoon named Rebecca, and he let her roam around the White House. That's a true fast fact. Look it up if you don't believe me. I could tell you a lot more cool stuff about American history, but I'd rather blow my nose. Professor AJ, the professor of awesomeness. The professor of being obnoxious is more like it. Okay, let's get started. We have a lot of ground to cover. I guess we should start from the beginning. Chapter 1. Who discovered America anyway? A lot of people think Christopher Columbus discovered North America, but there's a name for those people. Dopes. The truth is that Leif Erikson and the Vikings arrived here almost 5 centuries before Columbus. 500 years. That's more years than my grandparents are old. So na-na-na-boo-boo on Columbus. It's not very nice to call people dopes, but I must admit Arlo is right. Around the year 81,000, the Vikings sailed all the way from Scandinavia, that's Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, and landed in what we now call Canada. They also landed in Minnesota and started a football team there. It was called the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, you made that up, Arlo. The truth is that the Vikings were not known to be very nice people. Some were pirates who burned villages, killed people, and raided and plundered whatever they wanted. By the way, the Vikings didn't call themselves Vikings. Nobody knows what they called themselves. I know what they called themselves. Leif and Eric and Rolf and Olivia. They called themselves by their names. The Vikings were weird. Tell me these fast facts about them aren't weird. When Viking leaders died, their bodies were put in boats with their clothes, jewelry, and animals. Then the boats were set on fire and pushed out to sea. Nice funeral. Do you know how Vikings would start a fire when they weren't home? They would pee on some tree fungus, boil it, and mold it into chunks they could take with them. The sodium nitrate in the pee made it easy to get a fire started. Did you ever read Mr. Burke is Berserk? Well, the word berserk comes from berserkers, the name given to some terrifying Viking warriors who wore bear or wolf skins and howled in battle like wild animals. Eric the Red was Leif Erikson's father. He murdered somebody and got kicked out of Ireland. Then he sailed west to a big island. It was covered in ice and snow, but Eric wanted other people to come there, so do you know what he named it? Greenland. Ha, what a scam. Some people will fall for anything. Those fast facts are weird, Arlo. Columbus did make 4 trips from Spain between 1492 and 1503, but he never once set foot in North America. That's true. He explored some Caribbean islands and part of Central and South America. So not only was Columbus 500 years late, but he also went to the wrong place. That guy had no idea where he was. He thought he'd sailed to Asia. What a dumbhead. He was lucky, though. If Columbus hadn't accidentally bumped into the New World, his ships would have run out of food and water long before he reached Asia. I'd also like to mention that Columbus was not a nice man. He was named governor of Hispaniola, which is now Haiti and the Dominican Republic. But when the native islanders didn't give him enough gold, he cut their hands off. He was really not a nice man. You can say that again. He was really not a nice man. Arlo, did you know that an eclipse once saved Columbus's life? In 1504, he was stranded in Jamaica, and the natives wouldn't give him food. But Columbus had an almanac, and he knew that there would be a lunar eclipse on February 29th. So he convinced the natives that his god would make the moon rise inflamed with wrath if they didn't feed him. When the eclipse turned the moon red, the natives rushed to him with food and drink. Do you know why America is called America? Because France was already taken? No, it was named after an Italian explorer named Amerigo Vespucci. He was exploring the coast of South America in 1501, and he described it as a new world. A German map maker read about this, and he made a map of the new land, calling it America, and the rest is U.S. history. After Columbus, a bunch of other explorers came here. Some of them, like Hernan Cortez, were looking for a city made of gold. Cortez never found it. By the way, if you ever find a city of gold in your backyard, let me know and we can split the loot. Not all of the explorers were searching for gold. Juan Ponce de Leon of Spain heard about a fountain of youth that would allow him to live forever. He was searching for it in Florida, but he never found it. Do you know how we know he didn't find the fountain of youth? How? Because he died. Very funny, Arlo. You know, some of the explorers just wanted to find a way to get to Asia by going through America. They thought there must be a water route that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. They called it the Northwest Passage. Jack Cartier from France never found it. Henry Hudson from England never found it. They should have just taken a plane, a train, or used Google Maps. There were no trains or planes or Google Maps in those days, dumbhead. I knew that. Native Americans. Do you want to know who really discovered America? I'm not going to tell you. Okay, I'll tell you. It was the Native Americans. That's right, you may have heard them called Indians, but the correct term is Native Americans. They have the perfect name because they were native to America. So all these fancy explorers from Europe thought they were discovering something new, but the joke was on them because lots of people were already living here. And they had been living here for thousands of years. In fact, there were hundreds of tribes spread out across the Americas, from the Yupik people and Inuit of the north down to the Mayans, Aztecs, and Incas in Mexico and South America. It was that dumbhead Christopher Columbus who started calling them Indians. He thought he was in the East Indies. What a dope. That guy needed a GPS bad. When the Europeans showed up in America, they brought a lot of stuff the Native Americans had never seen before, like cows, sheep, and pigs. Sadly, they also brought diseases like smallpox, which killed millions of Native Americans who did not have the immunities the Europeans had built over time. In the years that followed, relations between Native Americans and descendants of those European settlers were complex and challenging. While some of that remains today, we now recognize the important contributions many Native Americans have made to our country's history, like Sitting Bull, 1831 to 1890, Geronimo, 1829 to 1909, and Sequoyah. Sequoyah was a Cherokee leader who helped his people develop an alphabet. The Sequoyah tree was named after him. There are lots of Native American words that became part of the English language. Caribou, chipmunk, moccasin, moose, muskrat, opossum, pecan, powwow, raccoon, skunk, squaw, toboggan, and woodchuck. And about half of our state names come from Native American words: Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Connecticut, and Iowa, just to name a few. Illinois means speak in the regular way. Massachusetts means about the big hill. Michigan means large lake. Minnesota means cloudy water. Missouri means town of large canoes. Ohio means good river. Utah means people of the mountains. Wisconsin means this tree meanders through something red. And Delaware means I need to find a bathroom fast. It does not, Arlo. I know, but bathrooms are funny. Hey, do you know anybody who has a mohawk haircut? They probably don't know that it was named after the Mohawks, one of the tribes of the Iroquois Confederation. By the way, the word Mohawk means man-eater. Do you know what sport was invented by Native Americans? It was lacrosse. That's a true fast fact. Back in those days, Native Americans didn't have email or text, you know. The telephone hadn't been invented yet. Do you know how they communicated with each other over long distances? They sent smoke signals. No joke.